Okay, so I am at home. Fear is a stranger here. That is our lesson 160. Very powerful indeed, and deeper than you may think at first glance. I am at home. Fear is a stranger here. So, what does that imply? That this home is fear free. If fear's here, that's a strange thing that we don't know fear. We really don't want to know fear. So fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Identify with fear and you will be a stranger to yourself. Why? Because you are love. You are made from love. So if you're identifying with fear and you're fearful, you have forgotten who you are. And thus you are unknown to you. What is yourself remains an alien to the part of you which thinks that it is real but different from yourself. So, and then it just does like the whole Course in Miracles thing where it asks questions that might confuse some people because of its like kind of sarcastic, passive-aggressive stance. I'm just going to say it. I can just see how Course in Miracles is a little confusing at times. But I think what it's trying to come across and saying is how can you know yourself if you're so fearful and identifying with that? That's not your true self. So anyways, there is a stranger in our midst who comes from an idea so foreign to the truth. He speaks a different language, looks upon a world truth does not know, and understands what truth regards as senseless. So fear is something that a lot of people struggle with because we are immersed in it on a daily. And fear is not the same of love. You can't have both frequencies going on at the same time. They're very, very different. So if you're like fearful and worried, you're not in a state of love. And if you're loving, you're not going to be fearful. So anyways, I want to just tell you what Jesus said today. Jesus for lesson 160 wants to know, how often are you in fear? How often are you fearful? Observe yourself and recognize how often you are in fear. Fear separates you from your knowledge of God. Fear takes you away from love. So a lot of times we are running towards fear. Whenever fear's on the movie screen or on TV, we're like a moth to a flame. We are literally choosing it. And Jesus is asking us to stop watching hateful, horrifying material. Stop watching fearful TV. Stop watching the news. Stop going and watching movies that murder and kill thousands of people. And also indulge in other fearing, mongering, like infidelity and things that you just, there's no end to the list of things that you can fear. So Jesus is asking us to stop watching horrifying material, stop watching death, stop watching murder movies, stop this hate. Now, when you know that fear is not your natural home, love is, and you know that fear is separating you from your knowledge of God and fear is taking you further away from the divine, you have to understand that you are using your free will then to consciously choose the hateful material, the murder material, the fear material. So watch how you are using your free will. Do you want to connect or separate further from the divine? Love is your natural home. And knowing that fear takes you away from love, choose differently. Choose love. Like anytime I hear anything about fear, I think of my mother. I'm going to throw my mom under the fear bus. You know, like she loves a good violent movie. She goes to murder mystery things with her friends. Like, oh, we just love it, don't we? But she also struggles from a lot of worrying and a lot of fear. and concern for others, and we don't realize how we are feeding it to ourselves all the time in the name of entertainment, in the name of joking, even, like, like we joke about murder, it's a vibe, right? Like, what? But we do it. I mean, I listen to even some of the lyrics in my songs. I'm like, but I really, personally, I don't like gory movies. I don't like horror. I don't like suspense. I don't like drama. Like, literally, I like cartoons, as long as they're not fearful cartoons, and they slip fear in that shit too. So, where are you at? Are you consciously, with your free will, choosing fear and knowing that it's taking you away from the divine, away from your knowledge of God? Do you think that you would be open to watching less of that stuff now that you maybe know what it's doing to you a little bit? All right, put it in the comments, just let me know. So we're talking about fear. I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. We're talking about knowing ourselves as love. We're talking about how the ego uses fear. And yeah, it's quite it's a Course in Miracles. And I do appreciate, Tina Jesus breaking it down with that commentary into, hey, how is this affecting us? Fear is taking us away from love. Fear is putting ideas into our heads that is separating us more from our divine self, from our knowledge of God. Fear is keeping us in a state of separation. So just as judgment solidifies the separation, fear keeps us right where the ego wants us. So today we offer thanks that Christ has come to search the world for what belongs to him. His vision sees no strangers, but beholds his own and joyously unites with them. They see him as a stranger, for they do not recognize themselves. Yet as they give him welcome, they remember, and he leads them gently home again where they belong. So, short story, we belong in love, not fear. Pathwaysoflight.org. Welcome to the reading, A Course in Miracles Workbook Lesson 160, Insights. I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. I am being asked in this lesson to let go of what I have identified with. I have identified with being a separate identity with a separate body and a separate mind. This is the stranger I have identified with, and yet I have identified with it so completely that my true identity as part of God has been lost to me. God became the stranger. My one self became a stranger. This identity as a separate self seemed so real that it seemed very difficult to find God. But the good news is I am learning to let go of this false identity. I am willing to open to my one self and let my mind be healed of all its false ideas. One very effective way in my return is to remember to see the Christ in all my brothers, to see the light of God in them, to see the truth about them. As I continue to practice seeing the truth in my brother, my mind continues to be healed, and I gradually cease to identify with myself as a separate identity, a separate person, separate from God and my brother. I gradually learn that this whole world of separate identities is a false world. It is not the real world. The false world of separation has only brought belief and limitation and pain. None of it was ever true. We all are still safe in God. We are all still as God created us. We all are still one in God. We never left God. We only dreamed that God was a stranger to us. We only dreamed that separate bodies were real. Now is the time to wake up from that dream. Now is the time to let go of that separate identity. Now is the time to wake up to our true identity as one in love. In truth, all are at home in God. Fear is the stranger in God's real world. In this world, everyone feels homeless to some degree. Everyone feels that something is missing. There is always some unsettled feeling, sometimes overt, sometimes hidden beneath a facade of orderliness and seeming stability. It all stems from having denied ourself. The world is the effect of believing there is something more valuable, more desirable than the home of love created for us by God. The world is the desire for specialness, for having a unique identity we can call our own. Yet God, being one, can only give all of himself to his creation. He cannot divide himself and give more of himself to one and less to another. What is one can know no differences. To identify with a special, unique identity, I must deny God and myself as it was created. Thus, I make myself a stranger to my Father and myself. I cannot know the comfort and safety of my Father when I deny it. My Father is still there for me, but I am unaware. Gently, methodically, and consistently, the Course is helping me to recognize that this image I have made and believe I am is not me. I can believe in a false image and experience it as if it were real, but I cannot make it real. Reality comes from reality, not from made-up images. This is my salvation. Return to truth is guaranteed, for it is ever present. I need only cease denying it, and I will know the truth. And it sets me free. Today I will practice again being open to Christ's vision, to see past the false images, to the light of innocence everywhere. The light of innocence is where I am truly at home. In the light of innocence, I find all my brothers and I recognize my Father, my Creator, my source, my strength. pathwaysoflight.org. Whoa, the pathways of light. Also, once again, especially for lessons like 160, which is kind of, you have to, a little help breaking it down is certainly wonderful. So wow, they said so many good things. I think it's interesting to keep on practicing more and more, letting go of that idea of specialness and letting go of the separateness and trying to see ourselves more as one in God. It's tough. I see it working on me. I feel it working on me, but then like where I work and who I interact with in my own personal life, I think, oh my God. It's like the ego always has something to judge. So being open to the light of innocence in everyone and everything. I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. So God gave his all to everyone. That's why everyone's equal. And that's what you got to start looking at. All right. So how do we end this? Not one does Christ forget, not one he fails to give you to remember, that your home may be complete and perfect as it was established. So everybody's going home. Everybody's one in God. Like, if you continue to entertain that thought, it will change you. It'll change you. It has to change you because it boggles you. It boggles your mind that everyone is going home to God. So anyways, he has not forgotten you, but you will not remember him until you look on all as he does. Who denies his brother is denying him, and thus refusing to accept the gift of sight by which his self is clearly recognized, his home remembered, and salvation come. So that Christ vision, seeing everybody as lighted beings, as one in God, knowing that, yes, you're going to go home and so is everybody else. So I know it just, that tells you how much ego you have left in your mind when you're like, oh no, not him, not her. You know, I don't want them to, I don't want them to go to heaven. I don't want them to go home. So anyways, fear keeps us away from love, watching murder, wanting to love some people but hate others. That's taking you away from your true self. That's taking you away from love. And yeah, it is a challenge to be graciously accepted that Jesus would like you to stop watching some of that stuff. Stop watching all of it and see what it does to you. I mean, I know I don't watch stuff very often, and when I do, it's like, you know, because I'm not used to it. But really, why should you ever get used to violence and death and destruction and betrayal and infidelity and murder? And it's like, I mean, even like the last time I went and seen a kids movie, one of the previews was for like a robot in the wild, like wild robot. Anyways, but there's going to be forest fires and there's going to be I mean, there's like fear infused in everything. And so if you watch the news, they're infusing you, pumping you full of fear. Fear of the weather, fear of this, fear of that, fear of people, fear of crime, fear of hornets, fear of whatever, fear of sickness, fear of this, fear of, like, what is that doing to you? So use your free will to connect to the divine. Don't separate from it. Say to yourself, I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. I mean, and then of course, you know, just be strange. Just be strange. Just be a good type of strange.